It's that little sheet, if you'd like to join. Om. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So the three shlokas that this chapter started with, this is the yoga of the divine and the demoniacal estates. Not referring to, sometimes it'll just be said the divine and the demoniacal, undivine. But estates is an important word in it because it's speaking of the states of mind. The estate is actually the state of mind. We picture it as the place we live, but of course it's really the place we live. The first three enumerated all of the virtues that Lord Krishna wished to speak about, and the rest of this chapter he's really focused on the vices, on the demoniacal aspect. We'll read these next two sutras. Let's see, right? Starting right here. There are two types of beings in the world, the divine and the demoniacal. The divine has been described at length. Sorry, I missed number 5, and please forgive. The divine nature is deemed conducive to liberation, and the demoniacal to bondage. Grieve not, O Arjuna, thou art born with divine endowments. That's where we ended yesterday. So just a reminder on what he's sharing about the two. And he says there are two types of beings in the world, the divine and the demoniacal. The divine has been described at length, and now hear from me, O Arjuna, the demoniacal. So really the entirety of the Gita to this point has been focused on the virtuous and the cultivation of virtues. And then he's enumerated them, and now Yogananda, beautiful quote from Yogananda. Yogananda was asked one of the great questions in all of the philosophies. The question that gets asked is, why is there evil? If God is good, why is there evil? If God is good, why is there evil? Swami Sarvapriyananda gives a wonderful talk about it. And we have a book here. It's quite an unusual book. It's a book from an Indian author who studied what each of the philosophical traditions and religious traditions have to say about the answer to that question. And so the book is entirely written on the answers to the questions from the different traditions. And so he speaks of some of the ancient traditions and the law of karma and all of this. Yogananda said this. He said, there is good and there is evil in the world so that you can choose what path you will take. An interesting reflection, right? And really the focus of the rest of this chapter is this, because you have free will and you might have habits, but the free will is stronger than the habits. The habits are born of prior assertion of free will. And we always thought free will had to do with the things that happen to us. We got it backwards. Free will has to do with how we relate to the things that happen to us. And that is what's important, and that's what takes us towards liberation or towards deeper bondage. And this human birth, mixed birth, meaning you're carrying both within the psyche. You're carrying both the divine traits and the demoniacal traits within the psyche. So you're given a mixed birth, an opportunity to choose which direction do you want to go. So this is purgatory. It's the middle place where you purge, where you have the opportunity to purge the demoniacal stuff and rise up. But by the same token, it's possible to go deeper and deeper into bondage. So if we go right to this, I think it's 36. There's this beautiful sutra in the this is it. Contemplation. I didn't go right to it. Well, then I'll have to paraphrase because I'm not remembering all of it. In the Yoga Sutras, which of course are teaching how to control one's mind, how to uplift and control one's mind. This is said. It's said that the virtuous is to, how do we act? How do we respond? Or how do we relate? It says that the virtuous we are to be friendly towards, and the unvirtuous, so the negative virtue, another way to relate to it, it's a negative virtue. We're to be indifferent towards. So
it's 4 types, actually.
Yeah, it is.
So it's
you remember the 4?
Friendliness
towards the virtuous, happy, yeah.
Then compassion to the unhappy.
Yeah.
Then it's indifference towards the wicked.
And friendliness towards the
happy. And delight towards the virtuous.
Delight towards the virtuous. Delight towards the virtuous. Thank you. Oh. Okay. So now we step into, and really this is the perspective. There's a choice. Even though we'll find that we have habits that are being classified as demoniacal, we can see it, and we have the capacity to root them out. And honestly, to be drawn to ashram, that indicates exactly what Lord Krishna has told Arjuna, which is, do not worry about this, do not be disturbed about it, just do the work. And he even says, because you're destined for, because you've worked out a lot of it already in order to have an interest in being in ashram. So the psyche will be predominantly one or predominantly the other. And we meet people in the world we see are predominantly good, but have very negative traits, and those that are predominantly evil. Evil, remember what is evil? So engaging in a way of life that takes them away from happiness and towards bondage. That's all it means. But free will allows us to turn.
Yes, like evil can be completely unintentional and accidental in that case.
That's a lot of the discussion, almost all of it. It's very rare that someone actually chooses to be dastardly for the sake of being dastardly and knows what it does to them. Because if you know what it does to you, it's a very, very rare exception that you would choose it.
Right.
It reminds me of and a lot of people have said it, it's like when you're angry at somebody, the same way when you use like the negative energy and everything, it's like taking poison and expecting, I said it to you the other day, taking poison and expecting the other one to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to harm the other
Oh,
person.
yeah, Buddha quote. Right.
I was basically bedridden for 2 months in Mexico, dying from this sickness, and I ended up watching a bunch of Netflix on murders.
Right.
And I fell in love with Jeffrey Dahmer, the guy who like ate people.
Okay. Yeah.
He was just so loving. He like hated himself, and he was an alcoholic and all this stuff because he had these desires that he knew were just so bad.
Yes.
And nothing was working for him. So at some point he kind of caved to them.
Yeah.
And a lot of his actions all had to do with trying to be close to people.
Yes.
When they're explained, it was kind of amazing.
Yeah. So the love is in the center of each and every one, but it gets perverted. And perverted doesn't mean exactly what it seems to mean either. It gets turned around, inverted. So it's expressed in a direction that doesn't bring what we would want to have. So exactly to your point, here's number 7. The demoniacal know not what to do and what to refrain from. Neither purity nor right conduct nor truth is found in them. So this is Jesus on the cross, right? Where he says the same thing. Forgive them, O Father. Forgive them, O Lord, because they know not what they do. So the same is said here. So it is an issue of ignorance. It's not, generally speaking, it's not an issue of intentional malfeasance. And even if it were intentional malfeasance, then what's going to be lacking is the knowledge of what it does to me to engage this way.
It's probably speculated on or appreciated later.
So, commentary from Swami Shivananda. He says, the demoniacal do not understand the nature of action and inaction. Inaction meaning right abstinence. The idea of a self, capital S self, apart from the body, doing nothing, actionless, but simply watching the play of the gunas is something incomprehensible to them. They have no consideration for the interest of others. They work for the sake of their bodies or sensual enjoyment. They are greedy, selfish, and cruel. Therefore, they have neither good conduct nor good behavior. They're untruthful, unjust, and impure. They do not know what actions they should do in order to attain the goal of life or end of human existence, nor from what actions they should refrain to ward off evil. Those who are endowed with demoniacal qualities are sunk in the mire of ignorance. They're totally ignorant of what is prescribed or what is prohibited action. They have not the least idea of what purity or cleanliness is. Their actions are crooked. They know neither right pravriti or right nivriti. They have no idea, so right thought or wrong thought, we can say like that. Beneficial thought or non-beneficial thought. And of course, action starts in thought.
Dharmic.
Yeah, the action starts with thought. So whatever is the thought nature, then the action will be of that. So it will be in accordance with that. So if the thoughts are all about, I need, this is terrible, etc., then we get mired in it. Does that make sense? And of course, we generally experience both. Both some virtuous thoughts and some not. But there's a tip over point there. So, and there's everything here. And God pervades all of this. So, which leads back to the question why, and the answer will have to be, there's everything here. Good only, in this world, good only exists relative to bad. Bad only exists relative to good. North only exists relative to south, south to north, rich to poor. Yeah. So Thich Nhat Hanh, when asked the question, why is there this? we'll say, because there's that. So in the same way. So this again, it's being pointed out, and we're being given a way to see it, but understand it's not about judgment. And the one who's all caught up is only in need of a little bit of wisdom. Just seeing what our thoughts and words and actions are doing to us, even from a self-centered basis, just seeing it will give us the impetus to change it. And all it takes is resolve and some willpower. And the tide starts to turn. And sometimes, and our dear Gopala does not mind that we speak of him like this. He doesn't mind. He's very appreciative of his condition. And he's so appreciative of the teachings because he had fallen into a terrible state. You know that he was stealing from his parents. They had to send him to jail. Right? When he first came, it was impossible for him to imagine doing anything other than for himself, his body, his happiness, right? So, but when we see him now, and some people feel something because there's still some thoughts there, right? And something he deals with. He recognizes it. He'll sit in the beginning anew and he'll apologize for those thoughts coming up. But the difference is that now he sees them and he does not feed them any longer. He's intentionally not feeding them. And this is the transformation. These kinds of transformations happen all around us. All it takes is a little bit of light and us at a point where we have cracked. Like that Japanese artwork, the pottery, Japanese pottery, where we've cracked. Often where we've hit the lowest point. Often then. And so cracked. And then some light and we see something. That's the story he shares. And then he has a wealth of support in the path because he had used heroin intravenously and so he knows that is the most pleasurable experience in this world. He knows it. And so he also knows that pleasure is not happiness. You see what a gift that is? He doesn't have a doubt about it. Many of us have a doubt about it because the mind asserts, but if I had this, then I would be happy. For the one who smokes marijuana, then there's a reasonable likelihood that at some point the mind will assert something better. I used to experience that. And then there's always the pinnacle, the one that's the most pleasant, the most pleasurable. And so he firmly understands that pleasure is not happiness. And so he was able to cross that off the list. No more seeking a pleasure. So there were habits about it. All of what we're reading here, that's what he was mired in. And he was really stuck until something cracked. And he speaks of being in prison and that crack coming then. So literally jailhouse conversion. I met a young man in Yuma. Last time I was in Yuma, who came up to me. And he had been in the gangs. And he had killed people. And he had terrible, terrible, terrible thoughts. And yet, we saw a complete conversion. and a recognition of it. And now, of course, his life is dedicated to working with people in that situation. And yet the virtues shine through him. So as we review this is what's important to consider, is that first, what they will do, and if we honor them, then we do go into deeper states of bondage, and we get to experience and it will happen because they're insidious. As long as we're pursuing a pleasure and avoiding a pain, there's no satisfaction. Right? There's no satisfaction. You can't have, I loved ice cream. You can't have enough ice cream to make you happy. But you can have more and more and more, and then until the point. So it's ignorance. The issue is ignorance. This is what's being shared. But then he goes on. They say the universe is without truth, without moral basis, without a God, brought about by mutual union with lust for its cause. What else? Holding this view, these ruined souls of small intellect and fierce deeds come forth as the enemies of the world for its destruction. And Swamiji adds commentary. They rob others, they acquire wealth by destroying others, they boast of their evil actions. I was in the corporate world. I stole all the time. I didn't consider it to be theft. I was able to justify it. So I told myself I was better than most. What is that? Filled with insatiable desires, full of hypocrisy, pride, and arrogance, holding evil ideas through delusion, they work with impure resolves. Hey dear, where are you going? And they work with impure resolves. So, meaning resolves for name, fame, wealth, or the opposite, to hurt people in order to get away, like this. They take impure resolves. Like very much what we see in Eastern Europe now. Right? In that situation, of course, it's born of ignorance. Giving themselves over to immeasurable cares, ending only with death, regarding gratification of lust as their highest aim, and feeling sure that that is all, that is the aim of life, that's what. And we've had these conversations, right? With people and inside ourselves. No one will know. The mind will assert. No one will know. No one will see. It will be okay. It's just this.
But then you're there.
And then you magnify it. And now the mind is primarily this instead of a little bit this. And it's not hard to make it primarily this. But what will prevent us is knowledge. What will prevent it is knowledge. So, yes, dear.
Oh, I was just thinking, but you'll be there, the person doing the deed.
Wherever I go, there I am. Yeah, there's the thing. And the heaven and hell is in the mind. Yeah, that's wisdom. Yes, that's knowledge. And seeing the relationship between it, and understanding how it happens, and understanding how we get there, and understanding how to come out. And also understanding the need for purification in the mind. The need for it. Okay, one more and then we'll stop for the morning. Bound by 100 ties of hope, given over to lust and anger, they strive to obtain by unlawful means hordes of wealth and sensual enjoyments. So, and we may see it a little bit, the ties of hope. So hope in this case, whenever in scriptures, and I'm not sure the Sanskrit word that's being translated to hope, but in the scriptures, when we see the concept of hope, sometimes hope will be used in a positive way, which is that if one engages in sadhana, if one sets an intention and takes a resolve to cultivate a virtue and takes the proper steps, which is to observe and to stay committed and to really bring the willpower to it, then 100% success. 100% success. Whatever you're working against inside, you'll always be successful because willpower is always stronger than faith. We talked about that a couple of evenings ago. Willpower is always stronger than faith. The things that are happening, the habits, the character, formed from prior use of willpower. But the present is always stronger than the past.
I feel like there's still some doubt in hope. Hoping it's just like some resistance in there.
So hope, generally speaking, exactly, hope is not knowing, generally speaking. It's a state of not knowing and imagining that something will happen in the future, something that's not within our control that will change our lot. So kind of a vain imagining, picturing something that might happen.
Feels and sounds weak compared to like faith, like fingers crossed versus like having some heart behind it.
Compared to will is knowing.
Yeah.
Will can be employed from knowledge, real knowledge, and then brings success. And that you can have faith in because you can observe it, you can see it, you can see how it works. Even if it was a story about a banana that you had, you can see how it works, right? And then you know how to root something out, how to replace it. But hope is the hope that something will happen in order to do.
I feel like the word takes the power away from you almost.
The word hope is equated with victimhood. Victimhood is a big thing for us these days, in this time. In this whole call-out culture, we imagine ourselves to be victims of others' behavior. And victim meaning that their behavior is preventing me from being happy.
Like that word, luck, and coincidence are three words that I find myself using that I'm trying to just get rid of completely.
Yeah. And can you see how they're demoniacal? You wouldn't have thought of them that way. But they're born of ignorance. And they, as practices in and of themselves, take you away from the goal.
They perpetuate the ignorance.
They just perpetuate it. And they make it darker. And you end up in a terrible state. So.
Could you define faith? Willpower is always stronger than faith?
No, didn't say fate. Fate. Thank you. I'm happy you asked.
Willpower is always stronger than
fate. In other words, you can always change your destiny. So bound by 100 ties of hope, given over to lust and anger. Again, in this state of imagining happiness is in an object, it's out there. So we lust after it. And we have anger when we don't get it. And either way it goes, personal desire ends up in anger. Because either we're angry at someone else because we see them as having prevented us from getting it. Like they got the job I wanted, they got the girl or the guy that I wanted, right? They did this. How many times do we hear this? And how many times do we hear it in our own mind? He did this. She did this. Right? So that is a demoniacal trait.
Violent communication, basically.
Because that's born of the materialist idea, which is a false notion. Even science has proved the materialist idea is a false notion, just like the flat earth. The idea that this universe is matter and comes from matter has been proven to be false. Categorically, the philosophers, the scientists, and the religious.
I loved the flat earth thing because it was like,
it's still here.
If all of them, not as far as like actually like believing that the earth is flat, but in the concept that all the information that we hear is just provided to us and we just choose to believe it. Right. And that all we know is what we're kind of seeing, so it kind of makes you look at things in a different way.
Right. So if we'll continue in the morning and perhaps even complete the chapter in the next 1 or 2 mornings, because it continues like this, but Krishna does not focus on the negative traits. He focuses on the positive traits. This is the only chapter in the Gita that's doing this. And he's just putting light on them and helping us to see, okay, really the negative traits are in a minority, and they might have been in a majority, and it might not have been long ago. But recognize that we have to root them out and that we can root them out. Both. And really the way to do is to cultivate virtues and have strong resolve about cultivating the virtues. Please, dear. Yeah, go for it.
I was just thinking in my head when we're talking to not get confused, and I've done this before in the past, is don't make a trait. Not a trait, don't make the act a dharmic or dharmic, because it's usually situational.
Yes.
So it's the intent behind the act. Just like as in the Bhagavad Gita, which we're in, Arjuna is asked to go to war with his family. That seems adharmic.
Seems adharmic,
Seems adharmic, but it's dharmic because of the situation.
Yeah, I feel like also as far as what would be, I guess, sin for lack of a better word, because nothing else is coming to mind. But like, even no matter how minuscule it is, if you're getting a bad feeling and you know that it's wrong when you're doing it, then you shouldn't do it.
That's correct. Now, most of our actions are reaction. So generally speaking, you're dealing with that after you've done it. So, and you're right. If you have the capacity to recognize early on, then you wouldn't do it. So we're developing that capacity. And then when you've already done it, the question is what to do. And that's where resolve comes in. That whole process about taking the resolve. The story I shared about the banana, I'd already done it. Generally speaking, that's going to be the case. And then you reflect back on it. And to reflect back on it in a way, and you described Jeffrey Dahmer, so to reflect back on it in a way where you say, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I hate myself, but I couldn't control myself. Then you perpetuate. Your willpower continues to go down and down and down. But when you come to recognize, oh, God bless you, dear. It's beautiful. Thank you. When you come to recognize that you did it, but that you don't have to do it again, and that there's a decision that you can take now in order to start the process so that you don't do it again, or so that you can end that cycle. And you have the knowledge of what to do and how to do it, then. And now it's not hope anymore. Now it's faith. Faith, F-A-I-T-H.
And even as sorry, I was thinking even faith. I mean, will is stronger than faith because even faith is still in between doubt. I mean, hope and knowing.
Faith. Well, we would say faith really is knowing, but it's knowing that which cannot be known by the senses.
Ah, okay.
It's a higher level of knowing. Most people call it faith, and it is faith, but it's not blind. It's not blind faith. It's faith born of conviction of what's here and how things work here.
From your intuition.
Yeah.
We're knowing, because there's no, I mean, for me, knowing, sometimes I don't do with the senses either.
Yeah.
It's just.
It's true. Then you can call it faith. Words fail, so words are directional. Normally, when you say knowing, then if you're in a conversation, then how do you know? Well, I saw it, I smelled it, I tasted it, I touched it. So, but that's not real knowing, although it is knowing and it is learning.
From claircognizance kind of knowing.
Oh. Yeah.
I was wondering, what's the book that you said we have from the guy that was talking about all the traditions answering that same question?
Yeah, I'll need to remember the name of the book, so I'll ask and see. It may take a few minutes. We'll see.
The sight and interpreting things. I remember being in high school and like a little fight broke out between these two kids, and I was standing next to two friends of mine when it happened. It was really fast. And at some point, the two kids next to me, my friends, were like talking about what had happened. And at some point, they were almost about to get into it because they're in such a disagreement about what had happened. And I just sat there like kind of blown away because what I had seen was completely different than both of their stories even.
Yeah. So you're seeing how it works. Yeah. That's the reactive stuff. And 98%, 99% of our actions are reactive. Very, very few are chosen in the moment. Even the spiraling of war is just a reactive cycle playing out. Oh, okay, let's close. Final prayers in RT, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashi Dukhabhak Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mritor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Bolo Sakura Shivananda Maharaj Ki, for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. And let's stand for arati.